Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our next Freshwater Stewardship Community webinar. This is the second one of 2025, and we are very excited to have a number of experts with us today. We have Jenn Lavigne and Michaela Stinson from Ducks Unlimited Canada, as well as Pat Laramonth from the Farms at Work group. So we'll do a formal introduction to all of them in a little bit, but just to say we're so thankful for so many people sharing their expertise with us today. My name is Monica Seidel. I work with Watersheds Canada, and I'm going to be doing a quick little introduction today. While I'm doing that, it would be really great if everyone could drop in the chat where you're tuning in from and one thing that you're looking forward to learning about or some curiosities you have why you tuned in today. And you can put that in the chat. And we have another staff member here today who's from Watersheds Canada. His name is Ty Fisher, and he's going to be helping out with everything in the back end of today's presentation. So if you have any questions for the question and answer period at the end, or you're having any tech problems, you can either post it publicly in the chat in the call today, or you can actually private message Ty in Zoom, and he can help you out with any problems that you're having. So a bit of introduction about Watersheds Canada, if people are not familiar. We're a national charity headquartered in Eastern Ontario, and we work with community groups and individuals across the country to deliver our programs. We focus on freshwater conservation, habitat restoration, and education outreach, which you can see in some of the photos I've chosen here today. We have direct habitat restoration programs like the Natural Edge, which is a shoreline planting program. We have fish habitat restorations. That's our bottom left photo here, which was from a few weeks ago when we did a walleye spawning bed enhancement on ice. And then we also do direct education outreach programming like the Freshwater Stewardship Community today, as well as child and youth outreach programming. A couple of different things that I want to let people know about before we get into today's presentation. One thing that you might not know about our organization is that we have a really large symbolic adoption program. So we have different artwork that is highlighting different species that benefit from our programs, and all of the artwork is done by Canadian artists. So when you make a symbolic adoption, you know that you're helping these specific species, but then you also get a really nice 5x7 postcard featuring that artwork. And you can either keep it for yourself or give it as a gift. And so you can peruse all of those different species by going to our website, watersheds.ca/gifts. We also have a number of free resources on our website that people might be interested in. Topical for this time of year, of course, is road salt. And so we have a free education toolkit on our website where you can access blogs, sample PowerPoint deck, different policy review documents, all pertaining to road salt use and alternatives, or being able to decrease our dependency on road salt in the wintertime, and how road salt actually is an issue much longer than the winter and has long-standing impacts on our freshwater. So you can access all of those free resources on our website, watersheds.ca/salt. Watersheds Canada is also delivering our first national conference in just 2 months' time. This will take place in Haliburton, Ontario, which is about the central Ontario area. And the focus of the conference will be about empowering individuals with different resources and actions that they can take to protect their freshwater, and then bring it back to their community to lead that action. So if you're interested in learning more about the conference or attending, I would encourage you to go to watersheds.ca/conference. When you go to that website, you'll see an overview of our agenda, of the activities, and also our featured speakers. And then you can also get your tickets there. So I would encourage you to visit that website after today's webinar. If you are a social media oriented person, you can find Watersheds Canada on a number of different platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Blue Sky. And Ty is going to put all of those different links so you can follow us along. We post a lot of free resources, cool facts about animals and freshwater areas, and also advertise different volunteer job opportunities as well as events like today. If you have any questions after today's session, you can email me, and that email is info@watersheds.ca. So We're all here for the Freshwater Stewardship Community. This program was launched in 2021 and has since run 50 webinars. Today is our 51st. And so all of these webinars are archived on our website and available for free access. We cover a wide range of topics as well as different speakers in different fields of expertise. And for almost all of those webinars, we also have an accompanying education handout. And so you can access all of those on our website as well. We will be creating a handout for today's session, and we are recording the webinar. We'll send out all of those education resources to everyone who registered next week. So if you have to leave early or you have spotty internet or anything, you will get all of the resources next week. And you can access all of the past resources on our website, which is watersheds.ca/freshwater-stewardship. I do want to take one quick second to thank our funders for the Freshwater Stewardship Community this year, which includes the Echo Foundation, Hodgson Family Foundation, Peterborough KM Hunter Charitable Foundation, and the SM Blair Family Foundation. It can sometimes feel like the Freshwater Stewardship Community is just a place that you attend a webinar and then you leave, but you're actually a part of a very large community. Over the past couple of years, we have grown to reach over 12,000 people in 23 countries. And so this map is just showing where people have tuned in from for all of those different webinars and registered, accessed our free resources. So it's a really amazing thing to have seen grow over each of the past couple of years. And we're just really thankful that you're here today as a part of the community. As I mentioned, we have a number of free resources within the community. Some of the topics that we have are on this slide. And so the page where you registered for today's webinar, if you just go back there and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see these different menu options. When you click on one of them, then you'll be able to access all of the free resources and webinars pertaining to that topic. All right. With that brief overview, I would like to now introduce our speakers. So we have three. The first speaker I'll introduce is Jenn Lavigne, who's a conservation specialist at Ducks Unlimited Canada. She has worked there for over 17 years. Jenn takes pride in working with farmers across central Ontario to deliver wetland projects as on-farm solutions that benefit farmers, the environment, wildlife, and waterfowl. Jenn grew up helping on the family farm near Fergus, Ontario, where she developed her love for nature and her deep farming roots. Our next speaker is Michaela Stinson, who is also a conservation specialist at Ducks Unlimited Canada. She has been a member of Ducks Unlimited Canada for 3 years, but as a volunteer in their community for over 10 years. Michaela has been a nature lover her entire life, stemming from growing up in the forest of Haliburton, Ontario. That love of nature helped form her career path in conservation biology. From the Hudson Bay lowlands to her home in Kingston, she's worked in this field since graduating from Trent University. And finally, we have Pat Learmonth, who is a board member with Farms at Work, and she's also the founder of the East Central Farm Stewardship Collaborative. Pat has been working in the agricultural sector in the Peterborough region of Ontario for the past 20 years. She was the environmental farm plan representative for Peterborough County for 7 years. She joined the board of directors of Farms at Work in 2021 after founding the project in 2010. Farms at Work is a charity focused on supporting farmland stewardship, new farmers, regional food systems, and farmland protection. Pat has held a wide variety of volunteer positions in farm and food organizations, including Sustain Ontario and the Peterborough Agricultural Roundtable. Pat holds degrees in laws from a degree in law from the University of Western Ontario and a degree in environmental studies from Trent University. She and her husband live on a farm in the county. So with that, I will pass it over to Michaela.
Thanks, Monica. Just give me a second, guys, while I get this all situated. Monica, can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see that?
Yep, you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Monica and Ty and Watersheds Canada for having us do a presentation on collaboration here in East Central and Eastern Ontario. So Monica did a great job introducing us, so I won't cover this too much. But Jenn will give us a quick definition on collaboration following this slide. Then we'll hand it over to Pat. It'll go back to Jenn, and then it'll come back to me. So buckle up, and I hope you guys enjoy our presentation. Go ahead,
I
Jenn.
love it. Thanks, Mick. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again for joining. So collaboration is defined as the action of working with someone to produce or create something. And at a high level, it's a call to action defined by a need within the community. And that call can involve a group of individuals or organizations who answer the call. So today we're going to talk and share about two farm stewardship collaboratives that have been working with farmers and rural landowners across central and eastern Ontario. These groups are committed to partnering with farmers who are interested in completing stewardship projects on their land. Together, these collaboratives can do more, and we're going to share today about the how-to, the successes, and the challenges of this model. First, Pat is going to provide some history and context about the why and how of the East Central Farm Stewardship Collaborative. Take it away, Pat.
Thank you, Jenn. Yeah, well, I am going to speak to the East Central Farm Stewardship Collaborative, so one of the two collaboratives that we'll talk about today. And the seeds for that collaborative were actually planted 16 years ago in 2008 with local discussions within Peterborough County. And at that time, I actually happened to be working for Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association as the environmental farm plan rep for the county. And I also was on the stewardship council for Peterborough County. So I was working in agriculture and also seeing the stewardship side of things from those two vantage points. And in conversations that eventually included Ducks Unlimited at a very early stage, we started to think, you know, there are overlaps between what stewardship is doing and what agriculture is doing. And at that time, this was a very new conversation. And we wondered if we could just build on some of our common interests in reaching farmers and farmland owners and create some synergy to leverage our resources and get some additional efficiencies for everyone involved. And the idea was really simple at that time. It was basically, well, if more than one organization has funding available to support farmers to do on-farm environmental improvement projects, what if we worked together and we could stack our funding, and that would give additional incentive to the farmers to go ahead and do these projects that fundamentally for them, they felt didn't have any business value. They couldn't really justify them in terms of their business model. So they were just nice to haves. And some farmers would do those things and other farmers would not do those things. So that's how our conversation started. And it basically increased the ability of the conservation organizations to make contact with the farm community through the outreach capability of the established farm organization, in this case, Soil and Crop Improvement Association. And so it just simply was a win-win for everyone. Next slide, Michaela. So initially, as I say, Peterborough County Stewardship, Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association, and Ducks Unlimited were the partners that were speaking to each other. And it was really within this political boundary of Peterborough County. So it didn't at that time have much to do at all with watersheds. Back in 2008, every county in Ontario had a county stewardship council. That came to an end in 2012. And Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association and agricultural organizations in general tend to be focused on counties and not watersheds. And even, next slide, please, Michaela. Ducks Unlimited as well is not really, and I don't want to speak for you, Jenn, but not really watershed focused per se, and also not county focused, but they, you know, we're working across all of Southern Ontario. And as you can see here, our area, which is right dead in the center, the bright red, was an area of significant interest to Ducks Unlimited. So So for various reasons, we weren't thinking in terms of watershed, we were thinking in terms of the county at the very early stages. But by 2011, we actually had 4 conservation authorities that had joined the group, and we were becoming more watershed conscious, and the map of our geography started to look a lot more, it went well beyond Peterborough County, and it looked almost like it does today. And then later on, Jen will put up a map that shows you the extent of the geography of the ECFSC at this point. So next slide. Basically, I just wanted to touch on 4 things I think that we learned at the very early stages of working together. And the first thing is that a regional collaborative is a really flexible tool. And so we had partners that represented the nature of our geography involved very early on. We have a lot of lakes and streams and wetlands, and so Ducks Unlimited obviously was very interested, but we also had a lakeland program at that time and a community stream steward program at that time. And so the partners did reflect those kinds of priorities. And at the same time, we had a very, very strong agricultural history in our region. But in other parts of the province or in other parts of the country, the priorities and the circumstances of partners wanting to come together to collaborate could be very different. But one of the nice things about the nature of regional collaboration is that you can literally focus on your own situation within your region. The second thing that we learned is that you need to be very focused and clear about exactly what it is that you're going to do together. In our area, there had been a larger group of conservation organizations that had come together a couple of years earlier, and they had sat down together around a table and had conversations over the course of maybe 2 or 3 meetings. And while that was really helpful in terms of people meeting each other and so on, the group did not continue as a group because there was no clear idea about what they would actually do together, what kind of work plan they would actually have if they were to continue to meet together. And so we found that having this strong focus on literally doing things, doing projects together, stacking funding, working together on a farm by farm basis gave the partners, excuse me, a reason to be at the table. And so I think that that's what has resulted in the longevity of our collaborative. Next, Michaela. The other thing that we learned was that when we first sat down, everyone was not really understanding the perspectives of everyone else at the table. So it took considerable time for everyone to talk through the way that they worked and for everyone to understand everyone else's way of working. Pardon me, I'm sorry. And I think that if you're starting something new, that often is the case, that you have to actually allow for that time. Pardon me. Over the last 16 years, I think one of the biggest benefits of our collaborative has actually been that we have, because of those conversations, been able to build a really high level of trust among the various partners. And the last thing that we learned early on was that in trying to obtain the support of organizations, sort of more senior management and so on, it was really important to have something in writing that explained why we were doing what we were doing, what the roles of the different organizations were. And we have maintained that memorandum of agreement to the present day. And over time, it has changed from time to time, but it has really provided us with something that grounded us in terms of understanding what we were doing and being able to explain that to other people. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Jen and you can talk about ECFSC in the present day.
Thanks, Pat. So 16 years later, we are still doing great work across the Peterborough region. So Ducks Unlimited Canada has been a member of the ECFSC since the beginning. We've always partnered with farmers in the Peterborough area, and we saw the opportunity to collaborate with other organizations as a way to make more connections within the farm community. Currently, the ECFSC spans across a broad region of the Kawarthas. The area we cover is a lot bigger than the original focus area, and it includes the watersheds of Lower Trent Conservation, Autonomy Conservation, Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority, Kawartha Conservation, and a portion of the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority watersheds. We also partner organizations that work across these regions, like Ducks, the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness, and the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association. Each organization has its specific geographic region and also specific stewardship programs that it focuses on. Some organizations have funding support, and others can provide expertise like wetland restoration options or tree planting. Overall, each organization wants to work collaboratively with the farm community, and we work in partnership with farmers to provide funding and expertise for the projects that they are interested in. Next slide, Mick. So currently, the ECFSC has 12 active members. This includes the various conservation authorities, Ducks Unlimited, OSCIA, OMAFA, Peterborough County Stewardship, Kawartha Land Trust, Nature Conservancy of Canada, and Farms at Work. Each one of those organizations has a staff person sitting at the table, and each organization is interested in partnering with farmers who want to complete stewardship projects. And these projects have benefits for the environment, but also have benefits for their farm business. The organizations also bring varying levels of expertise and various funding programs. Some of the funding is watershed-based, and other pots of funding are delivered provincially or across a broader region. Each organization is responsible for sharing their expertise at the table to support the on-farm projects. It's a place where we communicate about the programs and fundings we have and how we can best support partners and also partner with farmers. At the end of the day, it's about getting great stewardship projects in the ground. So how does it work? So all the ECFSC partners have agreed to the current Memorandum of Understanding, which was drafted by and is supported by each organization. Our MOU focuses on hosting quarterly meetings to discuss potential on-farm projects and how they can be supported. We share expertise. I at Ducks Unlimited know how to do wetland restoration projects, but I'm not the expert on selecting tree species or doing tree planting. But both of those projects can work together on the same property. We share our expertise at the table with each other, and we can direct farmers to the right contact for the project that they are considering on their farm. We promote all funding programs, and we promote various partner workshops. This cross-promotion provides better support for farmers who are interested in projects, and it also generates more interest within the farm community. In the past, if Ducks hosted a solo workshop, we might have like 5 to 15 attendees. But when the ECFSC hosts a workshop with all those partners involved, there are many, many more attendees because that workshop's promoted and supported by multiple organizations across the region. ECFSC is supporting farmers who are interested in doing stewardship projects with their expertise and funding. One of the great benefits is that funding from various organizations can be stacked, which allows for a higher level of funding to support the projects. The ECFSC also has a website for project leads and resources. Farmers can apply for their project, and then those applications are directed to specific partners within the collaborative. Another great thing we do is we share booth space at events like the East Central Farm Show. Each organization is represented during the event, but I'm not required to stand there and staff the event every day. We have other partners that can step in and share the Ducks information with farmers who are interested in our programs. And also, ECFSC organizations also apply for shared funding pots, which can provide additional top-up funding or just specific project funding in areas with less stewardship funding available. This has allowed for the ECFSC to successfully deliver over 500 on-farm projects over the last 16 years. And right now, we're currently working to secure more collaborative funding to support the ECFSC for 2025 and 2026 and 2027. So hopefully we can keep the ball rolling. Next slide, Mick. So I just wanted to share about a few projects that the collaborative has supported over the years. So the first one is a barnyard clean water diversion. The farmer had concerns about water coming off the barn roof and running through the livestock yard, and had connected with the ECFSC through our website. The referral was sent to one of our partners, who reached out to the farmer directly and brought some funding to the table and some expertise about diverting the clean water away from the barn. So there was multiple people involved, multiple partners involved to fund and provide expertise for this project. Next slide, Mick. The next one was a wetland restoration and fencing project. So for this project, the farmer had an area on the farm that was always wet and their tractor was always getting stuck. And so they reached out, and Ducks Unlimited helped by doing the wetland portion of the project, but the local conservation authority provided trees and shrubs for planting around the wetland, and also assisted with the fencing project. So we layered multiple funding pots together to get this project in the ground, and there was multiple organizations providing expertise to this farmer. Next one, Mick. And the last one I wanted to share was a windbreaks and planting project. So in this case, the farmer came to the partners. They had a seasonal creek that cut across their farm, and it was eroding, causing a serious erosion problem in a specific area. And they wanted to do shrub plantings and create a wider vegetative buffer and a windbreak. And the ECFSC brought multiple partners to the table, and they also brought volunteers to the farm to help do the planting. And the funding was brought forward to support the project overall. Okay, Mick, next one. So ECFSC success. So to date, the partners have collaborated on over 500 on-farm projects. We promoted and hosted 7 stewardship-related workshops across the region, and we try our best to spread workshops out in various locations to ensure each organization can contribute and that the farmers are supported. We host an annual booth at the East Central Farm Show and other shows like the International Plow Match, where each organization is represented at the shared booth, and we share the staffing. Staff then direct interested farmers to each partner organization who has the expertise in the project that the farmer is interested in. We've put together a funding application to support the CFSC, and we have hopes to hire a coordinator who will help us collaborate even more in the upcoming years. Now I'm going to pass it over to Mick, who's going to share a bit about the newly formed Eastern Ontario Farm Stewardship Collaborative. Go ahead, Mick.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. So, yeah, the Eastern Ontario Farm Stewardship Collaborative is a lot newer than the East Central Group. We've been operating for approximately 2 years. We're just coming into our 3rd year now, but we're still new. We're still learning the ropes. We're getting our feet wet. So prior to that group forming, everyone either worked independently or they worked with like an individual partner. So like in DU's case, I might work just with a conservation authority on one project, or I might work with just watersheds on another. And like obviously that's still in the works as well, but bringing it to the collaborative has opened some doors. So with the original model of no collaborative, this limited funding, and in some cases it also limited program availability because we weren't aware of who was delivering what or who had funding for a program. So in my first couple of years here, I heard about Jenn talking, I heard from Jenn talking about the East Central Group, and she mentioned that it could work in my area. And if I wanted to pursue it, it was going to take some legwork. So my first step was to reach out to the partners I've previously been working with to gauge their interest. So that included, the conservation authorities, any other stewardship groups that had previously partnered on projects with us. And I got nothing but positive feedback from everyone. And, that was a deep breath, because I was like, okay, I can actually do this and we can actually get something rolling. And from there, we set up our first virtual meeting. Did it go according to plan originally? No, it was a bit chaotic, but we're now in a place that we're kind of have a smooth agenda now, and there isn't as much awkward silence on our calls when we're not sure what we should be speaking about. And as you heard from Pat and Jen, they encountered speed bumps, and there was a lot of massaging involved to really make these types of groups run smoothly, which gave our Eastern Ontario group a bit of a head start, as they did a lot of the heavy lifting for us. Obviously, there were some challenges, as each group will encounter, and Jen will go over those in a little bit. So the creation of the Eastern Ontario group really increased the opportunities for landowners on our landscape. We're working towards being a one-stop shop, having that knowledge and the programs and the funding availability. And this includes determining which projects and partners we can be involved with and who can be involved where. And once we've established the project and who the partners are on those programs or those projects, we can let that group continue with those programs and projects. And if they have any questions, they can bring it back to the group. Currently, we have 13 active members on at our table. Some include funding and some are promotional partners. We've had organizations leave. We've also had some join, so that's always great. I always like to say it's an ever-evolving thing. It's not a stagnant group. You saw how the East Central group went from having 3 members to 12, so always being open to partners who would like to sit at the table. We currently have all the Eastern Ontario conservation authorities. We have both branches of ALICE, which are Mississippi Rideau and the Eastern region. We have DU, we have Watersheds Canada, and we also have some other groups which are on the slide here. So this is our delivery area that the collaborative works within. Just to note, we do cover the upper eastern quarter. We just don't have a lot of partners there at the moment, so we just have to be wary of those things when the intake forms are filled in. And then the East Central group abuts our western side there, which is where Jen and we meet for our delivery areas. So you can see here, the map is divided up by the Conservation Authority boundaries, as they have the most definitive borders. And so we kind of have to be wary of that when anything comes down the pipeline. And a lot of our other partners and program is delivered on more of a broad range. Like Pat showed the DU map. I know Watersheds covers even into East Central as well. So when an intake comes in, like say here in Kingston, I can look at this map and go, okay, well, that's going to be in Cataraqui regions area. So, they might be able to partner on the inquiry. And then in the back of my head, I know, well, oh, that's Watersheds area. It's OSCA if they're an on-farm program, because we do support rural landowners as well. And it's just, I have that knowledge because, I've been at the table with all these partners and they've shared their resources, they've shared their program. And and everyone else at the table has the capacity to, take that inquiry and make it something more than just a single project with a single partner. So where we're at now, as I mentioned, we're currently in our 3rd year, and this is kind of what that looks like. We're new on the landscape, so we have, I would say, approximately 20 projects that have completed in that year with 2 or more partners. We also run on a quarterly meeting basis with a standing agenda and a rotating chair. This allows us to bring forward project inquiries, discuss new program opportunities, and determine what upcoming events would be worth attending. We also have kind of like a blank space if there's anything else to enter that we kind of announce before the meeting, just being like, hey, are there funding opportunities, something cool to share, training opportunities? So that's always a helpful little add in. The schedule of the meetings can be altered based on necessity. So right now our East group is meeting on a quarterly basis, but we are applying for more funding through Conservation Ontario's Resilient Agricultural Landscape Program. And if we are successful with that as the collaborative, we will likely be meeting on a more like a monthly basis so that, you know, we're making sure we're hitting those deliverables and are around for support for the partners and the landowners. So that doesn't always have to be set in stone. It can move around as need be. And then the collaborative, as I said, is constantly changing and evolving and growing. We've lost a couple of partners, you know, their goals didn't align with what we were trying to achieve. But then we also brought in partners who did have goals that are aligning with what we're trying to achieve. And they were like, hey, we heard about you through XYZ, and we would love to attend a meeting. And we're like, yep, you know, you sit in, you let us know if this is something that works for you, or if it's not, you're not tied into anything. We've attended a handful of events so far, including Eco Farm Day in Kemptville the last 2 years, the Ottawa Valley Farm Show, as well as some smaller events. We've been a presenter at some of these, doing a presentation very similar to this. We also have shared booths in some cases, one being the upcoming Ottawa Valley Farm Show. We have the conservation authorities will have a booth and Alice will have a booth, but both will have the resources for the collaborative at their disposal. And if they have any questions, like people coming up, we have something there to give them and or discuss with them. So this is just a very high level list of the projects that could be offered by the collaboratives. This list was specifically pulled from our Eastern Ontario group, so it can vary, obviously. I always encourage, you know, going on the websites, those will be shared with you if they haven't been already. And it gives a list of, you know, what we deliver, what the East Central group delivers. But, you know, if there's a project that you come up with and you're like, hey, I wonder if this would, you know, fit into your goals, it doesn't hurt to reach out. We might not be able to support it, or we might be able to create a program that does, or we might know someone else that does. So don't be scared to, you know, ask those questions, because there's no stupid questions in the world, especially when it comes to program and projects. But yeah, so obviously not everyone knows everything about everything. Wetlands, some people know trees, some people know riparian planting. So if one of us doesn't know, we can gear you to the right person. I'm going to go over just a couple projects that we've done as the collaborative. Now, we've only just gotten our website and intake form up and running, so we're hoping in the future that's where our project inquiries will come through. But these ones were brought from partners to the table to share. So this first one is the O'Neill project located in Gananoque. This one came through DU, and the landowner purchased the property and was like, I can't farm over half of it. It's not yielding well. I can't get my tractors through it. What can I do with it? And the first thing I did was look at this imagery and be like, okay, well, we can see it's wet. We can see it's eroding away. And, you know, it definitely wants to be a wetland. But a project that like this is going to cost a lot of money. And I didn't have all the funding, but OSCIA had their SARPAL program open at the time, and the landowners jumped on it. And so OSA was brought in, and they were a funding partner. And then the landowners really wanted to support birds and species at risk further. And they were like, hey, do you know anyone that's willing to do a planting? And Watersheds Canada immediately came to mind. And they, like Chantal, I think she's on the call today, she built a plan with them and created a whole riparian planting. And we created an over 18 acre engineered wetland with this landowner within the collaborative. So that was a really, really good win for the landowner and for the collaborative to show that like this happened because we had the partners available. We also have the livestock fencing and wetland restoration categories. This project was brought in by Rideau Valley. The landowner attended one of the events and saw we offered some program, and Derek went out, and they really wanted to get the cattle out of the provincially significant wetland because, one, it was dangerous to the cattle, and two, it wasn't good for the wetland. We were doing an imbalance of nutrients, we're wrecking the ground, all those fun things. So Derek was in charge of doing the fencing portion of that, and he brought it to DU's attention. and was like, hey, well, if we're excluding the cattle, how are we going to water them? So we designed a wetland that had some irrigation capabilities, and they were able to successfully use that as an alternative to the cattle being allowed into the wetland. So that was another successful project. So the benefits to the landowners and farmers, one-stop shop, like I said, they come to one of us and we can bring in 2, 3, 4 more depending on the project. And we just have those resources available to the landowner if they need them. Site visits, pretty much all of us will meet on site. Well, the partners will meet on site with you. Should your project warrant or be feasible for a project, we'll typically screen them online first to make sure, you know, it's going to align with our goals and the goals of the landowner. And we like to say, like, you're not tied into anything with this site visit. You know, it's just helping us and the landowner put a real like vision on the ground. So that kind of is a nice added bonus, as you don't have to pay for it in most cases. The technical assistance, we've had numerous people say this is their favorite part of working with the collaborative because they don't have to do the paperwork. We design it. We help them with the permits. They typically submit them, but we can help them get all those details in. And volunteers, like doing the plantings, you know, we might have a group of volunteers that want to do something good on the landscape, and this is an opportunity to bring them out and help cut the cost to the partners. And then that additional funding, I know you guys have heard us say stacking funding quite a few times, and pretty much what that means is that, like, if I have 5,000 as DU, OSCA has 10, and the Conservation Authority has 5, we're able to bring that together from 3 different sources to help minimize the cost to the landowners. So that obviously is a big selling feature if you guys don't have to pay more money. And then you're just working as a team on our end, and you guys or the landowners get to do it as well. And it just feels it's more productive in some cases, and it really is just more of a meaningful experience. So I'm going to pass it back over to, or no, this one's mine, isn't it? Sorry. We switched them halfway through. So the benefits to the collaboration itself. So again, one-stop shop for farmers. We also have joint promotion and cross-promotion advantages. So this meeting being a prime example, Watersheds was able to share it. We were able to share it, and it reached more people that way and more attendees. Like Jen said, if one person is hosting it, 5 people might show up. But if 4 of us share it, 30 people might show up. Bringing in the dollars and leverage funding. It's nicer for an organization to pay 5,000 rather than 30, whereas if a whole bunch of our partners can split that, feels nice. Technical support and sharing that expertise, it helps grow our knowledge of, you know, I might not know this, but this person does, or they offer this program support. And then regionally appropriate and flexible. We aren't tied into one spot. So we've showed you the maps. Between the 2 collaboratives, we cover a good portion of Ontario here. And if one partner can't help, I'm sure another person in the group can. And low overhead, high impact. You know, these projects are less work for us when more partners are involved, but they mean a lot more because, one, we are able to support the landowner in a higher level with more expertise, and show, especially in the farm community, like showing that both things can work together. Like, we don't have to remove any active land. We're not trying to force the farmers to, you know, take out active production. We're trying to help them in marginal areas that are a pain in their butt to work. So that's always what we like to say. Like, is there a part of your farm that's soaked that you're just sick of driving through? That's probably where you're going to want to start. So yeah, lots of benefits to collaboration. That's just these specific cases. Obviously, if it's a different topic, these will likely change a little bit. Jen.
Great. So thanks, Mick. So challenges to consider. Collaboration isn't always easy. It's not. Here are a few things to consider when you're thinking about starting a collaborative group in your region. 1, consider having an MOU or terms of reference. This allows the collaborative to outline the roles and responsibilities of each organization, and it lays the foundation for the group. So your organization might be interested in lake stewardship, and it might see the benefit to working with other organizations in your area. Drafting a basic MOU or terms of reference sets the foundation and the direction for the group and outlines all the roles and responsibilities. It's the roadmap, and you may need to revise it and revisit it many times as the group evolves. 2, make sure you have clear collaborative goals. Which partners should sit at the table, and what are the collective goals of the group? Review the MOU and the goals of the collaborative often to ensure each organization understands which direction the collaborative is heading. 3, capacity for coordination. Someone needs to take the lead or be the bus driver, as we like to call it. How will the group handle this? In the past, the ECFSC has had a funded coordinator that supported the group and maintained files and did bookkeeping and managed the grants. But at times, there was no funded position. So organizations had to step up to lead the meetings and chair the meetings and ensure we continued to communicate effectively. Having a funded coordinator works well, but it isn't always feasible. And there always needs to be a leader to keep things moving forward. 4, communication is key. Ensure that all organizations are communicating about partner projects. Who's responsible for what? Who has the expertise? Who has funding and how much? Doing this and communicating often allows for smooth project delivery and well-supported projects. And I know the farmers really appreciate it too. 5, collaboration, not competition. So members have to want to collaborate to make it work. If organizations can't see beyond their sole organizational needs, it can become competition. For example, I deliver wetland projects, but I'm constantly promoting other partners' programs when I visit farmers. I might come up the laneway with some funding for a project, but I also can connect the farmer with other potential funders. So it's not just all about Ducks Unlimited. I'm wearing many hats when I go up the driveway and share a lot of information about a lot of different partners. The farmer in their project overall is well supported and funded, and it's a win-win. So we all share projects and expertise, and we can do more together. Everyone needs to understand and be reminded that working collaboratively has many, many benefits. And I believe we can do more and have a broader reach if we work together. So back to you, Mick.
Awesome, thanks. So you've heard our spiels, and these are some of our key takeaways. And I really want you to think back to our third slide that Jen spoke to, which was the definition to collaboration. So we've looked at it at a farm perspective, and now we want you to think of ways you can apply it in your community or your jobs where needed, or maybe it's just your everyday life. So these were some of the key points that we wanted to highlight to really start your groups and then let it flow from there. So first off is determining what the need is and what your goal is that you're trying to achieve. So for us, we were all working individually. We wanted to work more together to bring more resources together. So like, how are we going to do that? But that was our goal, was bringing awareness to landowners and farmers with stewardship in mind. So, and the next step would be looking for others with similar goals. And that could be individuals, that could be groups of people. So in our cases, it was mostly groups. I always like to use a shorter example of like lake associations. There could be a lake with a bunch of cottagers, but those cottagers don't interact with each other. So what is your goal? Is bringing them together. So maybe finding a couple other people on that lake, being like, hey, do you want to meet once a month? And, maybe go over some of the issues we're seeing, maybe, make events to really bring the community together. Like that is always a prime example that I think of. The third one being connect and see if there's interest in working together. So that's that initial phone call, email, going and knocking on your neighbor's door, and then following up with that, planning a meeting. And I know we live in a virtual world where it does make it easier, but even if you could go in person, it makes a world of difference. You get to meet those partners. You get to really like hone in on those ideas. You get to work on a whiteboard and, be back in the school days of not working on a computer 24/7. And then once you've kind of established a group, you outline your goals and, consider where your region's going to be. And is everyone thinking of the same thing? Are those goals aligning? Do you all have the same ideas in mind? Because that will really kind of phase out who should be there and who shouldn't be there. And you can bring on those partners as you grow. And then once you're there, that's that big outlining your benefits and your roles. So an MOU/MOA, you've heard us use that term quite a few times, or terms of reference. Just, work at it as a group, put in, when you want to meet, what you want to meet about, who's going to lead those meetings, what are your goals? And it doesn't have to be this lengthy agreement. It could just be one page. Ours are kind of lengthy, but there's a lot of us involved. So having that in place will really kind of lock in that perspective of where you want the group to go. And we left it with these ideas because this was kind of more broad for everyone, and following the MOA, MOU signatures, it'll branch off depending on what your collaborative is focused on. So it's going to have some speed bumps, it's going to have some learning curves, but sticking to your ground of these kind of points will be really helpful in the end. So thank you guys. It's open to questions. I'll throw it back to Monica. I think she's the moderator of the questions, but I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so we can see everybody.
I'm gonna actually keep you sharing your screen
Okay.
because we have some questions about specific slides.
Oh, okay, cool.
But before we jump into Q&A, Ty is going to be popping in a link to a short anonymous survey. So if people can let us know what they thought of today's presentation, if there was anything that really stuck out to you, that would be helpful feedback for us. And then there's also a section in that survey to let us know if you have other topics or specific speakers you'd like to see at a future event. So that would be greatly appreciated if you will take just a few minutes to answer that. We do have a number of questions, and we'll try to get through as many of them as possible. If you haven't already put your questions in the chat, now is the time. You can either pop them in publicly so that everyone can see, or you can send them to Ty or myself individually if it's something you would rather keep anonymous. So the first question we have is, a person is interested in the expansion of agricultural lands by the use of tilling. And they're wondering if there are potential harms to the environment and if there are best practices to limit environmental harms like aquatic pollution, things from algal blooms, and nutrient release.
Tilling or tiling? I think it's probably tiling. Is that correct, Monica?
Yep, I just saw a lot of long characters and thought it was tilling. It's tiling. You're right.
Okay. Just trying to. Can you repeat the question? I'm trying to find the question in the chat. Hold on here.
Sure. So
okay, I found it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So I guess the one of the biggest learnings that I can share is our collaboratives are strongly working in partnership with farmers. So we try to provide on-farm solutions to challenges they may be having, and we really look at it as a partnership. And we're not there to tell them what to do or what parts of their farm may be problematic, but we really try to provide solutions to some of the challenges that they are having. And one of the biggest ways we do that is we really work with OSCIA to send farmers to their environmental farm plan workshops. So a lot of the funding that we provide is environment based, and OSCIA has a lot of funding that can also support ag BMP projects on farms. And so that gives us the ability to sort of layer or stack that funding together to support projects on farms. So if you don't know about the environmental farm plan workshops, they're great. You can go to the OSCIA website to find out more about those workshops. And it's just a great opportunity for farmers to learn more about the different aspects of their farm business and how they can incorporate environment and ag BMPs into the action plans for their properties.
Great. I think maybe this will be around the same sort of answer, but I'll ask it anyway. So someone's wondering about measuring phosphorus and if there is kind of a threshold for too high of total phosphorus from the flow from the farmland into the stream inlets. And then the second part of the question is what is the best way to implement with farmers initiatives such as stream bed stabilization or wetlands?
Go ahead, Jen. I might be able to answer the second part, but
Okay. So yeah, so phosphorus is definitely a concern from a lot of angles. And so I wouldn't say that I could give a direct answer to that question in terms of phosphorus levels going directly into wetlands. We have done a study at Ducks Unlimited through our science group that looks at water coming into small excavated wetlands and also exiting small excavated wetlands, and we can say with confidence that they do make a difference. And so, we feel that putting small excavated wetlands at the edge of fields or at the end of tiles does make a difference before the water is sort of hitting larger waterways and water bodies. I don't know if that answers your question very well, but
yeah, I think it's like Jen said, the first part's a little hard to answer as phosphorus count is more of our IWAR division than for us. They're looking into those studies right now. But the best way to like implement a reduction in those phosphorus, like Jen said, we have proof that our small excavated wetlands are very helpful to help, capture some of that excess nutrients, or even putting like some especially in tiles as well, maybe putting a plant catch at the end before the wetland, because those plants are going to catch some of it as well. So those are always great uses to like incorporate into your farm management.
Well, thank you. It was me who answered the question. I'm on 3 Mile Lake in Muskoka, and we don't have a lot of farmland, so it's probably the reason we don't have a farmers cooperative. But we do around our lake, which is shallow for about half of it, have a few farms around it. And so we have been measuring the phosphorus that flows into the lake at the stream inlets. And so we're just kind of wondering, well, what is a high level? Where is remediation needed? And then how would we go about it? But I think maybe it might be helpful if because I'm not a farmer, so I know nothing about farming, if I maybe shared your presentation with another cottage association that has somebody that I know that is a farmer on it, and maybe I start from there because he would know a number of the local farmers. Would that be a good approach?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
I also put a link in the chat to the Ontario Agricultural Best Management Practices page that OMAFA has, where they have a wide range of booklets that they've published over time. And they're also available, I believe, most of them digitally online at that link. So that could be helpful to you in terms of those specific kinds of questions.
Thanks, Pat. That's great.
Okay, and I got a couple private messages from people telling me the survey link didn't work. It has been fixed now, so you can answer that survey. Apologies for the mix-up on that link. It's still the same link, anyway, it's ready for feedback now. So thank you to the people who let me know that. I think the next question we have here is just if any of you are aware of other collaboratives across other regions of Ontario.
So right now at our level, it's just the two of us, I believe, like just the Eastern Ontario, but they are in the works of starting another one in like the Grey, Bruce County area. They're really starting to push that. So if you're in that area and you're on here today, Jen, you might know who to contact for that because I think you've been in chats with them, but hopefully more are growing in this area.
If folks are interested in the Grey Bruce Huron area, and Blue Mountains over that way, they are starting collaborative over there, from what I've heard, rumblings. And I think one of the lead organizations is going to be Gray Ag Services. So you could reach out to them if you're interested in learning more about that group. It's just hot off the press, folks. So tread lightly.
Great. And I think we'll go with one more question here, just looking at the time. And this is a question we get a lot too about how to engage farm owners in a friendly and productive way related to water quality protection. But I think that can be expanded to any of the types of projects you're trying to deliver, how to start those initial conversations and get them on board.
Jen, do you want to take it or do you want me to take it?
Go. Somebody else could take it because I was clicking thumbs up to some of the people in the comments.
So yeah, it's a big part is not to demonize farmers. And that is one thing we really want to emphasize is like, we are not trying to take active land out of production. We're not trying to force you to do things on your property. It's about even just the collaboration between the organization and the landowner. And it really just has to start with a conversation about depending on where they are. I've had these conversations before where they've come up to our booth and they're like, well, why would I want to partner with you? And I mentioned this in the call was like, do you have an area on your farm that's wet that you're just sick and tired of? And the 50% of the time, the answer is yes. Or if they say no, it's like, okay, well, do you tile drain? Do you have windrows or do you need them? And just like, it is very much dependent on who you're talking to. There are going to be people that slam the door in your face and do not want to work with you. And that's completely okay because the next person might really want to work with you. Jenna, maybe you have some more to add to that, but.
Yeah, it's always looking at it through the lens of working in partnership, right? So, and finding where those goals and interests align for sure.
I would suggest that if you're thinking of approaching a specific farmer or a group of farmers in your area, that this is where it comes back to going to a farm organization and Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association's rep for your area is probably the easiest target, and see if you can set something up that is a joint discussion or a joint event that initiates the conversation. So I would just suggest that rather than actually knocking directly on a specific individual's door, you might come at it much more indirectly to begin with.
Yeah, farm shows were a good place for us to start, especially the Ottawa Valley Farm Show. They're there for, equipment, seeds, but the Conservation Authority we knew was there. And they have like a whole eco corner. So it was a really good place to kind of have those initial conversations. If you have something that brings them into your booth, it's very helpful. Like I know for us, we just made a wing string, which is very interactive, and it helps start that conversation because it starts as just a friendly chat. And then you kind of just weasel in with a good question on like, are they a farmer? Are you a rural landowner? What's your property like? So it's really in that initial kind of pull, like Pat says, you might not want to go knock on their door because they might feel like you're targeting them. But going into a more open forum would probably be the best place to start.
Amazing. And I just want to note, some people are putting in the chat some other collaboratives in Ontario. So there is one called Healthy Lake Huron Collaborative, and then the conservation authorities are also involved with collaboratives in southwestern Ontario. So depending on where people are, there might be a group that's already doing great work and that you might be able to connect with. I think a lot of the other questions kind of either got covered with your presentation or related to other questions that were answered. So we'll end it there. I want to just say thank you so much to Michaela, Jen, and Pat for their time today. And if anyone wants to access that recording or the education handout, we'll be sending those out next week. And if you come up with any other questions after today's session that you forgot to ask, or maybe you think of something later, we'll be happy to connect people with our speakers and you can connect with them more maybe you're involved with a group that might be interested in joining one of the collaboratives, we'll be happy to facilitate those conversations too. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to answer the survey link. It's really helpful for us as we keep running this program year over year to make sure that we're featuring speakers and topics that are of interest and really important to people and what they're seeing happen in their community. So thank you again, Michaela, Pat, and Jen, and we'll see everyone at the next webinar.